of who Charlie is. I'm sure he'll go into a little bit more detail. He's the current head coach of the Australian Gliders women's wheelchair basketball team. Obviously, with COVID and the Olympics being moved, I'm sure it's a bit of a different time for him when it comes to preparation for a big tournament, which I'm certain he'll talk about. But on top of that, he's also a 3-time SBL championship winning coach, twice with Kalgoorlie and once with Cockburn, as well as a MSBL coach of the year as well. And you have to be pretty special to get one of those. So, Charlie, without any further ado, I'll introduce you and you can take the reins.
I'm unmuted. Yep. Thanks, mate. I apologise. Sorry off the top for being a bit late. I was on a wheelchair Zoom at the same time and it went longer than was expected. So apologies, I'm a little bit late. Kind of just snuck in there. But that's the world we live in right now. And I have to say it's nice to be on a meeting where I don't have the best beard. I'm a little jealous. Well played. I'm just going to... Nixie and I spoke a little bit about what today would be. We didn't have a set topic. I'm just going to go through a little bit more about myself, which is I don't enjoy, but anyway. And then just go through a little bit of some more philosophy stuff that I've sort of learnt along the way. I've got some notes. I'm looking at this saying, thinking to myself, I can't even read half of the stuff I've written down. So bear with me. I'm a talker, not a planner on this type of stuff. So what I wanted to do is go through a few things and then maybe open it up a little bit. I had the thought the other day that the first time Brett Brown was coaching the Boomers, they had some sessions here and he had an open session where we got to go in and watch them train, and then he did a presentation at the end, and he did it as a Q&A, and I think we all got more out of it where we could ask things that might have been relevant to us. So that's kind of what I am looking for here. If you're all happy with that, we'll plow on. But as Nixie said, if you got any questions, shoot them across on the chat, and we can, if you don't feel comfortable just butting in, that's a horrible term, but you know what I mean. So we'll fire away with that. I said to Nixie, how far back do I go? Look, I played for a long time at SBL. I played way too long, as I'm sitting here in pain right now. And played 300 plus something games. I actually played to age myself before the SBL was called SBL. I think 85 was my first year. Might have been 84, but that's a blur. And basically played my last game in 2005, where I was an assistant coach and suited up a little bit. Coached domestic teams down at Willetton, which was sort of my home stadium. And then as I sort of started to playing and got a little bit older, got involved with some wobble teams along the way. Kind of moved away from that a little bit as I got older as a player. I didn't have the energy to do both. As it was becoming harder to play, but then started to get back into it again as I got a bit older. I got lucky enough to join Greg Gurr as an assistant coach for an under-20 state team. It was the year that Bevo won the world under 21s, 20s and under, whatever the hell that championship is. So that had Marto, Brad Robbins, Bogut, Alex Marich, Newley, Brad Hill. It was phenomenal. And I was the biggest guy on the WA touring party. We won Matt Knight, Sam Harris. We won 2 games. We beat Tassie in the first game and Tassie in the playoff for last. I then got the head coaching job the next year, and we had Tovey, Garlop, Carlin Hughes. I was assistant coach at club level at that point in time at Stirling. And we won a bronze with that group, which was basically on the back of Tovey. No surprise there. Assistant coached for another couple of years and then moved to the Giants for the 2006, 7, 8 and 9 seasons, which was a real big fish, little pond, real bubble is the sports word of the 2020, I think. But we're in our own little bubble. We had a great team and we had some really good success. The end of 2009, it was time to come home. The reason it was time to come home, I quote the, oh God, what's his name? Nixie, Essendon coach. Sheedy. Rowan Sheedy was getting pushed out of Essendon and ended up at GWS, and his last year at Essendon, they kept hitting him up like, what are you going to do, what are you going to do? And he said, well, there's two types of coaches, fellas. There's ex-coaches and soon-to-be ex-coaches. I fell into the soon-to-be category. Moved down to Cockburn for 5 years, and had the same thing happen at the end of 2014, but that one was completely fair. I was done. Took on the wheelchair job, women's wheelchair job here. They were called the Western Stars. They're now called the men were always called the Wheelcats, so they adopted the Wheelcats name. Really just for something to do. I didn't want to sit around and do nothing. 5 years later, somehow I'm the head coach of the national team, of which is in a lot of ways been parked, obviously, due to COVID-19 and 2020 becoming 2021 from an Olympic and Paralympic point of view. It's a bit of an overview as to how I got here. It's really all I wanted to mention. There is a reason for it. I don't have my trumpet here. It's not just for that point. You never know where it'll take you. You never know. When I started coaching as a young buck, at clubland down at Willetton or wobble teams, it was more really it was kind of fun, but I thought you should give something back. We were in SBL and you kind of, the big ticket in the club. So it was kind of the right thing. And my parents had always been involved in sport and coached and administrative and stuff. So it was very much just an idea that it was the right thing to do. Kind of got some traction with it, really enjoyed it, got lucky, and I'm not going to deny that, there was a little bit of luck. I went up to Kalgoorlie for my first gig, and they were at a club that had rebuilt itself from a really dire financial position, and were now at the point where they were ready to roll the dice and go for it. The mix of the financial security and the player quality was there at the time was pretty incredible. We had two Australian guys that were probably the best players and definitely the best Australians in their position, in Seamus Ballantyne and Mark Heron. And we had the ability to go get some high quality imports. Came back to Cockburn, built that from scratch. When I got there, we went 8-18 the first year, which doesn't sound too bad, but after 8 games, when you're 5-3, those last few games got pretty, became a pretty long season. But we built up from 2010 from 8-18, we went 18-8, and then in 11 and in 2012 we were lucky enough to win another one there, which was very rewarding because it was a bunch of local guys and 2 imports. We didn't have any paid Australians. We didn't. The closest we had to an outside player was a guy that had been at the club 3 or 4 years and has not played anywhere in WA for anyone else. So there's a bit of luck there. You got to land at the right spot. You got to, know what you're doing helps, but also know when you're in luck. Know to get out of the way as well, which I think was. I used to sum it up with some people in Kalgoorlie at the time. I was just clean it up a little bit. I'm sure no one would mind if I used the actual term, but I was just the right prick at the right time. Acknowledge your luck and use it. Don't waste it. A bit like momentum in a game. Don't waste it. A little while back, I did. I think Nixie presented at it as well. BWA had a coaches clinic, and I did a thing on more coaches' mindset. There's a couple of things that kind of stuck out as I was researching that, and one of them is goals. The goals are important. And I think we acknowledge that, what's our goal? Is it realistic? So, first day of pre-season, we're all saying we want to win a chip, and then, we build them back. We reverse engineer what our goals are. They're important. For the team to have goals to achieve to, whether it's points per quarter, whether it's field goal percentage, whether it's deflections. There's all sorts of things we can go into for goals and targets. It's important to meet in the middle. Now, sometimes we could be coaching 12-year-olds. There is no meeting in the middle, all right, because we can't play video games through the middle of the game. So it depends on your group, but it's working with the group to get them to understand why it's important that we do it this way. One of the skills that a lot of people won't admit to is there's a lot that probably at SBL particularly, and the programs I'm in at the moment, there's a lot of leading to scenarios. You can definitely sell what you're looking for. But the other thing with goals that's important as well is your personal goals. Initially, when I started, I just enjoyed coaching, and that was great. Then after a period of time, it was like I got the state team, that was good, got a head coach, was an assistant coach at SBL, and decided I wanted to be a head coach. I didn't really push hard. I don't want to say I sold out for it, but I did pretty much pack up my life and go to Kalgoorlie once the opportunity came up. But I think it's important to acknowledge and accept that. If you want to, as a career, move forward in coaching, acknowledge that that's what you want to do. Accept it. Go about it the right way. I don't know what that is. All right. The right way is what evolves at that period of time. I don't believe that there's one way to do anything. And I don't believe that anyone can give you a template of how to succeed. They can tell you some things you've got to work at, but that, I look back at my time in SBL, and Mark Utley coached Rockingham for a long period of time. He's coaching Kalamunda, and Mark's every bit the coach that I am, and he hasn't won a championship. Like that. So does that mean his way's wrong? That just means he didn't have the bit of luck that he needed at the time. But acknowledge them, use them, but use them properly. Use them for the team growth. Use them for good, not evil. It's not about making it about you. It's about acknowledging that you have your goals, your personal goals, but using them well within the team structure of what you've got. There's no good me coming in and having a team that's not going to win a championship and riding them like their bloody secretariat. You've got to know what you've got. You've got to develop. And I probably learned that my first year at Cockburn, where we got in there, and as I said, the team was 8-18. We were 5-3, and I can't do the math, but out of 8-26, those last 18 games, we won 3. But we built. And we built that team up, and it really made me reassess what my goals were, because I've been flying in Kalgoorlie. It was great. We won 78% of our games. I know that because someone told me one time. It's not like I looked it up. But it's fine to remember that. It's fine for me to remember that. But when you're winning 78% of your games, you're not building. All right, you're guiding. So when I got to Cockburn, I had to change what my personal goals were for that season, which was we need to really lay the groundwork, put in the solid foundations, teach these kids up, empathise with them, realise that there's a bunch of young guys out there that are in a different scenario to my 27-year-old veterans who were, the best point guard in the league. There's one thing that kind of dawned on me at one point, that my goals are important if I use them right. And as I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what right is, because that's your own decision with your own group. Culture is important. I'm not going to dig into that because that's its own topic. Culture is very much a player-driven thing of accountability is really all it is. You will need to have an input into that. There's going to be times in a team where you're going to need to be the driver of it, and you are the full stop. Particularly under SBL, as if we go wobble up, it's really hard for that to be a completely player-driven thing if you've got an under-14 boys team sort of thing. But we can still have acceptable guidelines. The key with that is, as I said, you can drive to where we get an acceptance of what we stand for. Examples that I've always had are, don't text me at 10 to 6 to say you're going to miss the 6 o'clock session because of work. Text me as soon as you know. And work's probably one I give a little bit of leeway to, but don't text me at 10 to 6 and say you've been sick all day. Yeah, that's unacceptable. I can't adjust my training plan at that period of time. So they're the types of things that we can, and with younger kids, you know, it's probably more the parents are involved in that side of stuff as well. Whereas with seniors, your relationship is directly with the player. So that's where you need to hold that accountability. One of the other things that became important is connectedness. I said I was on another Zoom meeting. So we've been in lockdown. We gave the Gliders girls, which is the national women's program, we gave them 6 weeks off once this really hit. Basically, that meant they didn't need to report to us. We weren't holding them accountable for what they were doing. They asked at that point. So I'm in a lucky position, obviously, at the moment, but we have a sports psych and she runs the Zooms with the girls. They've done fortnightly Zooms through this. So she would give me some feedback that the girls wanted to know that 6 weeks meant that we have a fortnightly call program in place normally because we're scattered. We're a decentralized program and we're all over the place. So there's 3 of us in the coaching staff. We've divvied up the squad and we make a call each fortnight to each player just to stay in touch, have a chat, build relationships, but keep everyone connected. Sorry, I touched my touchpad and everything started moving on me. Sorry about that. So the app that we use in our normal scenario is called AMS. I don't even know what it stands for. It's something medical something, but it's a training load app. So basically what it is, the athletes, it's a AIS controlled program. So each day when they train, they go on the app and they put in what they did. And they load it. So what we're looking for is a workload. All right, so if I talk loads, that's what it means. And as we're building up to say qualifiers last November, leading up to probably the end of October, maybe the first week in November, it's billed to 5,000, 6,500 in that range, depending on the athlete. Workload that they need to be in, then we give them that sort of 1 to 2 weeks kind of chill period before we get on a plane and go play. While I was doing some research for the previous seminar that I spoke about, I came across something that Ange Postecoglou, glad I don't have to spell it. Athlete management system. There we go. I knew it. I just knew I wasn't going to find it. It's been a weird ass day. Thanks, Josh. He had a similar thing when he was coaching the soccer team, the national soccer team. So he liked what it gave them from a reporting mechanism. The way AMS works is if we could get that right, physically you'll be at your best chance to perform once you get to your event, whatever it might be. For us, it's all tournament play. So we're building up for a 2-week tournament, basically. So physically, you'll be fine. What Ange Postecoglou liked was that he knew that every day his players were reminded that they're part of the team. It takes 5 minutes. You'd be surprised how hard it is to get 18 people to do it every day. All right, but the sales pitch now has become, well, if you can't, that means you can't spend 5 minutes every day. You can't spend 5 minutes, every day wanting to be and caring about being a glider. There's other examples of it. I mentioned Utley before. He's done it in different ways. At Kalamunda, I think he's done this, where he gave the players, they got their polos and he gave them all a socials job. Every one of them, say by Friday, whatever within a week was what he did at the time, had to post something on their socials in their club shirt. And he knew that week everybody, when they weren't at training, was still thinking about being part of the Kalamunda Suns. It's just examples of connectedness. The reality is, in my day growing up, we got pissed. All right. And that still has a place. All right. Not going to deny, particularly at SBL land, it's still a real thing. Probably can't do that with the under 14 boys, and I can't do that in my role at the moment. I can go have a couple of drinks, but now I'm on the first chair. I've got to obviously be careful of that. So it's different ways to think about keeping your group connected when you're not together. And it shows out more when you are together because it creates banter, it creates conversations, it creates little competitions. The amount of back and forth on our team WhatsApp group is enormous. The banter that goes on, and I don't see the ones that that are just the player ones. Thank God. But it creates banter. It creates some while we're away, and it's been really, really good for the playing group through this period of time that they're able to still stay connected, still chat, still rib each other, still give each other shit. But then at the same time, you also see stuff where so the IWBF is the International Wheelchair Basketball Federation. Like all sports, it's just there is no wheelchair basketball at the moment. But they've been on Facebook, they've been putting on old games, just like everyone else. So there's a lot of chat now about the girls who are watching it, and then they're talking about stuff in the game, and it's creating that connectedness of team, connectedness of friends. Hey, here's a bonus. They're probably learning stuff. All right. So everything kind of starts to feed into each other. The other thing that I kind of, in hindsight, learnt in Kalgoorlie, and I learned it without knowing it. I mentioned before that Seamus was our point guard. Seamus Ballantyne was appointed or named in the all 20 year, whatever it is, of the SBL as one of the point guards. And very quickly in that first year, he would come over and go, I'm thinking of doing this. Yep, sure, mate. You're the best player out there. Go do what you want. That's, that was where this came from. But what I did notice in hindsight was it started me going and asking him questions. And then I'd ask the other leaders in the group, and I had some really strong and experienced imports and, a couple of other experienced players and good brains. What do you see out there? What's going on? The other thing that's important with questions is, and this bit is something I'm still learning with my group and still learning probably overall, is that what type of feedback do they all like? Now, I got a girl in the national team, Shelley, married a Spaniard. He's also a wheelchair player, and they live in Spain. That alone probably means she's fairly tough with what they've gone through. I can speak to her like I could speak to any of the SBL guys that I used to coach. She likes to be held accountable. When she fucks up, I can tell her. I was and still am probably quite a loud coach. Would that be the nice way to say it, Nixie?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, Charlie. Yep.
It's amazing how many veins you have on your head when you see footage back of yourself coaching a game. So I've had to learn with a bunch of different athletes, and this is not just because they're women, these are disability athletes, that there's different ways that everybody learns, and knowing that becomes important. So we've got a young girl, she's 20, out of New South Wales, who just learns if we draw it for her. So when we're introducing something at one of our national programs, camps, we grab the whiteboard on the side of the court and we draw it. And we might draw it once or twice, maybe 3 times. Yeah, maybe 5 times on a bad day. And then she draws it and she's fine. Whereas others, I can just say, what I need you to do, and you can move them around. So what I learned about that was, as a player, if I could, coach was introducing an offense, I could go out there, run it 3, 4, 5 times, I'm good. All right. That doesn't make me right. It just means what works for me. And that everybody learns differently. And then everybody, therefore, most of the times when we're kind of holding a player to account in a game, there's a lot of questions asked. And it's really hard to know that, Nixie, I can say, what the hell are you doing? And Chris, I've got to go, what'd you see out there, mate? What was that all about? And be a lot gentler, maybe. Or did you see, you missed that cut. What did you see? And ask them to explain it. So it's really important to ask because, and to learn that kids won't give you the right answer first time, but you'll get there by talking to them and asking them and working with them. Their parents might know, their parents might not, but it's worth, it's worth asking. So how players need their feedback, to me, is part of the, ask questions philosophy as well. It's ask things about them. We still want to know them. We still want to know what they're up to, how things are, particularly at this time. How is everybody? How you going? Let's be honest. We've all had crappy days while we've been locked in the house for the last 2 months. But if we're asking people, how you doing? It goes a long way to opening some doors. Then we can say, Tim, you're struggling with this bit. What can we do to help you? What are you not seeing? What bit confuses you? Again, the level of athlete would determine the way we need to ask the question as well. And, that how do we do it is on us as well. We're going to make some mistakes. All right, as you're learning your group, you're going to make some mistakes about that, and you just got to cop it. You've got to apologise if you get it wrong, and you just got to move on and get it right next time, or the time after that. But we just got to make sure that we keep making sure that through that connectedness and that face-to-face or the online world at the moment, we're asking how they're doing. Are they having problems? What part don't you get? Did you miss that? What did you see? Teaching people differently. As I said, draw it on the whiteboard. The other way, run it, watch it. Get the kid who's not sure, or who you think's not sure, to actually stand there on the sideline and coach it. All right, the point guard passes the ball to the left wing and they cut through the keyway and out the other side to the corner. Tell everybody where they're meant to go. Different ways, different learnings. Your philosophy is going to be what it is. I don't want to touch on that too much, and particularly if we're early in our coaching career or coaching young kids. The philosophy is something that's got to be yours, but we can't get too precious on it, which we all do. All right, so I'm telling you not to do the thing you're going to do because you're going to do it. All right, that's just the reality. But we do this because we think we can do it. I don't know anyone who has an opinion on something because they don't believe in it. So, there's going to be some trial and error on that as well. But have your philosophy. The one thing I've always had, and I'll go back to Abelbods. There we go. Been in this game too long, haven't I? Go back to SBL. Is that I was a defensive first team. Always was. I had some hellishly high scoring teams. But we could play D. And that's because we spent time on it. And we just harped in that it was just like, we're going to learn our stuff. We're going to be a defensive team. And that's what we're going to do. Sport FM used to have Sean Dennis on years and years ago when he was here, which is a long time ago now. And they were talking to him about it, and he'd go see games of SBL and talk about it. He mentioned something on air that really brought it, and he said he brought it back to front of my mind, was he speaks to a lot of coaches and they're like, it's really clicking. It's just, all we've got to do is clean up that defense. And as he said, he always wonders when people say that, how much time do you spend on it then? If you want to be a good defensive team, practice it. Have accountability. That's your philosophy. My style of defense is my philosophy. My style of offense is part of my philosophy. Know it. Believe it. Don't take someone else's. You're going to start with someone else's. I mentioned earlier that, I was an assistant coach at under 20 state. I have absolutely raped and pillaged Greg Kerr's core offense. That he was the head coach that year. I took it the next year and we added some bits. And from what was a core offense, by the time I'd finished at Cockburn, I think we had something like 12 different options off the core set. Now, that was just because it evolved and plays and you watch stuff and you chuck it in, but it was like, that was my offense. I'm not saying I invented it. It was mine, and that's what I was going to run. Know what it is and know why you're doing it. So I did it because it gave me a great you know, it was really weird. I went back to Kalgoorlie after I'd left the first year, and in one of those annoyingly brilliant moments, young Ryan Hume, who was a starter for us up there, was captain of the team now, and I said, he's going to score 3-pointers, and on a fast break, he's going to jog up the sideline like slower than me, and he's going to go stand at a spot, and he's just one of these guys that just does stuff that no one else kind of understands, and somehow no one's going to guard him, and he's going to be open, and he's going to hit him. And we were up halfway through the fourth quarter, and he hit 4 threes down the stretch and torched us. And in the paper the next day, someone, when we got back, and in the local paper up there, someone sent me an article, and I was saying how, like, the irony of getting beat by Ryan Hume because my philosophy was shooting threes, which was weird because I paid a lot of money to about 400 to 450 pounds of import every year so that we could dominate the paint. We dominated the paint because we had Hume and we had Seamus and we had these guys that were just going to go do what they did. So know why you did it. I know why I went and got those imports, because I knew the style I wanted to play. I was trusting when I first got up there and arrogantly thought that it would work. The players made it work, and away you go. But that was part of my philosophy. I don't want to be a big team. I don't want to be a shooting team. I want to make you guard us at the paint and at the 3-point line. So just know what it is, and it's going to change. Know what you are. If you like the way, and I'll use an example, and it's big now, it's flow now, it used to be called breaker. That Bevo and Andre ran when he was at New Zealand. I see a lot of people running it, but they're just running a template. They don't know why they're doing it. They haven't invested enough, and maybe it's the first time they've seen it, but I've seen a lot of coaches that have coached a lot run it because it became the go-to offense. Flow is now what everyone runs. But if your dribble handoff isn't someone dribbling at the defender, well, then your handoff doesn't work. There's no need to actually make a switch. All right, if you're doing it just because you're doing it and you're actually putting the handoff onto a better defender while you're doing it. So take these things, use them, but then know why you're doing them and make them yours. All right. I can't emphasize enough how knowing what you stand for, what your philosophy is probably the most important thing. Because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to trust yourself. Be you. Really hard because I'm trying to be quieter. All right. But be you. All right. And make sure that you own what you're doing. Don't do it because, Trevor has just been ridiculous how successful he's been here with the Wheelcats. But in Melbourne, everyone thought the flex stuff he ran was stupid. And yet he's won 4 championships in 5-7 years or whatever the hell it is, or 3 and whatever the numbers are. And the people we all know thought, that's stupid, that doesn't work. And now it's like, this is the greatest thing ever. I've just so much got a greater appreciation of the flex offense. Because Trevor just went, this is what I do. And look, I've got Bryce Cotton. Sure, that helps. All right. But, it's what he does. And he owns it and he runs with it. The other one I've got here from an age before is this makes me sound smart. Fighting entropy, all right, or reverting to our lowest form. Most people will take, and I'm most people, all right, I struggle with this part. It's something that I'm aware of, and I try to focus on the point of this whenever I'm in one of these. Most people will take one thing out of a group format. You'll find something, whether it's something I've said here or your Zoom meeting next week or last week, and when we are all allowed to go outside again, although tonight not going outside seems like a good idea, and you'll be in your coaches' meetings and these sorts of things face to face, and we'll sit there and something will really click with us, and we'll go, oh wow, I really like that. And scribble that down, and I'll use that. Most people take that one thing that really pricks their ears. Elite is taking 3. Now, if you take 2, you're ahead of the curve, because most people take 1. All right. So when you get these type of environments, and it might not be a Zoom, it might not be a Nixie-led coaching development course, it might be talking to bunch of coaches on a Sunday down at Bendad or, you know, up at Wanneroo or, you know, I know you hate to say it, but down at Willetton. All right. And you're talking to some other coaches and they say some stuff and it's just a chat. It's not even a coach's think tank. It's just, you know what they're like. We get 3 coaches around and we can't help ourselves. We're bloody idiots. We start talking about X's and O's and all the rest of it. If the fighting entropy is for ourselves on that one, really stretch it. You might go, I'm going to take those 3 things. I can only do one at a time. Like I can only introduce to my SBL team, let alone my under 14s, one of these things. But I've got, and I never thought about this last time, I've got a goal. Hey, see how I tied that back in, Nixie? Look at that. All right, but it gives me something to then go, hey, I took these 3 great things that, you know, Nixie said last week. I'm going to use them. All right, and which one? Maybe you just take the one that really catches you the most and you go like, all right, let's do that. Maybe you have a chat to Nixie about it or not. And maybe you just go, all right, 1, 2, 3. That's the, I'm just going to start with one of them. I'm going to bring that in. It might be an offense. It might be a defense. It might be a philosophy. It might be a process. Could be anything. All right. But fighting that entropy and not just sort of blankly staring at the blackboard while the teacher's talking, you know, is something that I think all of us, all people, sort of struggle with. There's the outliers on that, but you know, the people that just annoyingly hear stuff and run with it that none of us like because they make me look bad. I mentioned before the 2 sorts of coaches. The most important thing I've learned in the last 5 years. When I left Cockburn, I was spent. I'd done 9 years, 4 of them in the Kalgoorlie bubble. Kalgoorlie fly now. I'm really pissed off about that because we made them a lot of money and we didn't see any of it. And we didn't see the planes. Our weekends for the road trip where we would meet at the stadium at 6 a.m. Sorry, the bus would leave the stadium at 6 a.m. We'd drive to Perth. We'd get in about 1:30. We stayed opposite Harbour Town. There's a crappy hotel motel thing there. I can't even think what it's called. You get 3 or 4 people into it in an apartment size thing. So it was a good economic decision. And central, so it was in Perth. And then we'd go to our first game that night and play at 7:30. Then we'd come home and then we'd play a 12 o'clock game on Sunday. And then we'd get back on the bus and we'd stop and we'd load up with food. Maybe a couple of beverages we had on the bus as well. And then we'd get home about 11 to 11:30 on Sunday night. So that was our road trips. That was a bubble. That was a grind. Didn't help that home games were huge and I like a beer. So there wasn't a lot of early nights on a Saturday night in Kalgoorlie either. Came to Cockburn, built that up. We won in 2012. Had a bit of a slide. The last year there, 2014, my then partner and I, she got quite sick. It was a really rough year. And for the first time ever, I didn't want to go to training. First time ever from a kid playing under-8 rugby league, born in Sydney. Don't hold that against me. All right. Didn't want to go to training for the first time ever for the back half of that season. Really ground through it. Got out of it. Wasn't going to go again. Didn't apply for the other job, any other jobs. Kind of thought, screw this. I'll just have a year out. John Trascari, who some of you might know, been involved with men and women over for a long period of time. He was coming out of that wheelchair job. He'd been the coach at the 2012 Paris, and he was coming back to SBL. So that's how I got into it. John phoned me up and went like, "You're not doing anything. Let's have a coffee and we'll have a chat." So I jumped on it and loved it, and it was great. And it was a different sort of stress. There wasn't the now I missed part of this, so it's not knocking it, but there wasn't that week-to-week clubland stress. The way the National League plays is once a month we all go to one city and we play 4 games for the weekend. And then, so I've gone from Kalgoorlie to getting on a plane on Friday morning and getting back Sunday night. But the week-to-week grind wasn't the same. There wasn't the 2 sessions every week. It was a much more relaxed. The numbers weren't there, so we couldn't really drive too much scrimmage. It was a much more relaxed environment. And we had the best scorer that the wheelchair women's ever had in this country. I'm still trying to get her to increase. I'm not coaching them anymore, but I guess I don't have to. So just to put that into perspective, we play 40-minute games and Amber has not averaged under 30 points a game in a wheelchair for 5 years. My first year philosophy was, I don't understand everything yet, but I know how to work defense. And and we've probably all been watching The Last Dance, so I'm going to quote Doug Collins, it's get the ball to Amber and get the fuck out of the way. It was, yeah. And there's 3 of those girls, including Amber, that are currently starters in the national team, and one other girl who's part of the squad. And in the women, we're allowed to have able-bods play to fill numbers because there's just not numbers, so we had an able-bod. And I worked out maybe the second year, really, really enjoying this. It's changed a bit. Get part of a national program, it changes that pure joy sort of part of it. But it's the thing I worked out the most, and I think it's the most important thing. I said at the beginning, have your goals, they're perfectly fine. Have your career path, have what you want, your aspirationals on top of that. But if you're not happy where you are, it doesn't matter. If you're not enjoying it, change something. It's no different to any other part of life. So if you're not enjoying it, and I love what I'm doing right now. The part I don't like is that I don't actually have, because we're a decentralized program, I don't have enough contact with the playing group as a playing group. As people I can call them or whatever, but I miss having a group and being able to go down and train. Wace is up and running, and WA is lucky that Wace has a full wheelchair basketball program, one of only 2 states, and Swiss, New South Wales is the other one. Brad Ness, who's 5-time Paralympian, and he's now the assistant coach of the men's national program. He's the head coach of that. And I can get down there when I can, but I got this other bloody annoying full-time job that I've got to do, so it doesn't allow me to get down there. That's the thing I miss, but I love what I'm doing. I love, I love working with elite athletes. I love working on problems in games and in training sessions, because we're coming up against Netherlands, who are the reigning world champions, or the US, who, hey, not surprisingly, they're pretty good at wheelchair basketball too. I love that aspect of it. Look, I'm not going to lie. I love getting on a plane and going away somewhere. I wish I got the chance to see some of these places I went. All right. But, the whole package, I just am so happy in what I'm doing right now. And it took me 9 years of SBL and maybe a couple, maybe 2.5 into wheelies, of being a head coach, to work out that was the most important thing. I wanted to win stuff. I wanted to improve. I wanted to make players better. I wanted to play well and give players the ability to do that, win, lose or draw. But it took me probably until then to work out that, when I'm good is because I'm having the most fun. And I don't think it was the other way around. I think I was enjoying it. And that's when I probably coached better. I probably relaxed. The players were able to play together, and winning came with it, rather than enjoying the winning. Because what I can tell you, all right, now I'm going to pick the trumpet up for a sec. I coached 9 years of SBL. I played in 4 grand finals and won 3. I've coached 5 years of women's national league, I hate this, women's national wheelchair basketball league. That is a mouthful. All right. And try rolling WNWBL out really quick. All right. And in those 5 years, I've made 4 grand finals and I've won 1. And as soon as they finish, what's next? The winning doesn't make me happier. Not winning the championship. Don't get me wrong. The beers probably make me happier afterwards. And I'd rather win it than lose it. Which unfortunately I've made a habit out of in the wheelies over that 5 years. But when I'm just enjoying where I'm at and what we're doing and relaxed, I'm better and the players are better at that. So when you can find that space, and if the kids are having fun, if your SBL team's enjoying it, they'll work harder. They'll learn better. You'll feel like you're able to improve them more. And it increases your want to actually improve them, to actually give them more when they've started to enjoy it. As I'm sure we all have, we've been listening to a lot of podcasts and different bits and pieces at the moment. There's one I listen to fairly regularly. Sounds sappier than it is, but I'll give it a plug. It's called The Happiness Lab. Lady is a Yale professor in psychology or psychiatry, psychology. And it's about, it is about happiness. I mean, it's got some really cool other stuff in it. So the title isn't a real indication of what it's all about. But she's been doing some COVID-19 stuff. There's a young kid that she taught who then moved to New York, who started an online, can't think what it's called. We realised a lot of people can't go out, get their stuff in lockdown, particularly the old, the sick, disabled, whatever it might be, immunodeficiency, that type of stuff. And he created a website where you could kind of register and pay for it online, and they'll go get it and bring it to you. That's all they did. So they hoped that they'd have, him and his mates, maybe 10, 15 people who might be able to do this. So they've got thousands of people doing this through New York. And he's the happiest he's ever been. And it sounds cliche, and it sounds everything like this grumpy old prick probably wouldn't normally sort of tag into, but that's this grumpy old prick, not that kid. That when you're happiest, when you're coaching, you're going to coach better. So just enjoy it. We get caught up in wins and losses and shot percentages and all the rest of it. Just enjoy it. That 8 and 18 season was so much fun watching these kids develop. Now, again, we had a good group. We had a young Damien Scott coming through in that group. We had a couple of good kids that come through, but I remember the first home game we played that year, and Mo got the ball, Damo got the ball, stole it at about half court, just over, so we had to go back over half court into offense. And big Justin Brown was back on D, he hadn't got over, which was fair enough. They were trying to trigger a fast break. Mo came down the left side of the court, basically did a big J curl through the baseline and threw up like an 8-9 foot floater over the top of him. And I don't think the net knows the ball's gone through yet. And Bryce Birch was our import. He was sitting next to me about to sub in, and he looks at me and he goes, "Do you think he's fearless or stupid?" And I was like, "I think it's a bit of both, mate." But it was so much fun seeing those guys just take it on. And that's what we want. We want to enjoy it. We want to make an environment where all your athletes, all your players, I say athletes, I'm sorry, I have to. It's my new job. They make me say athletes. I'm not allowed to say girls or players or whatever. They're all athletes. You can tell it sits with me perfectly. But if all your players are having fun, they'll play harder. Winning's fun, but enjoying yourself's more important, because then you'll win. And again, we've all probably been watching The Last Dance. Didn't look like I had any fun. The last year of the first three-peat, and then what we're seeing in 98, and I know there's a lot of other stuff going on, but it didn't look like anyone was enjoying themselves. And having been fortunate, maybe some others here as well. Luke's daughter played down at Cockburn when I was there, but I got the chance to chat to Luke a couple of times. It wasn't fun, it was business. All right, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. I get it, it's a bit of a different scenario, but I think the theory of that still stands true. That first year where they won, when they were trying to be good and they were enjoying each other and they were just wild and just out there, just playing and attacking and being aggressive. They were just having fun. So enjoy it. That was kind of all I kind of wanted to say. I don't think there's anything on my notes that I've read. Career pathways, no, I spoke about that. No, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I know it's not as maybe topic directed as some of these will be. It's not about defense. It's not about offense. I've sat through a million of those. If you haven't yet, you will. And they're important, don't get me wrong. But I think it's also important to just, realise the impact that we can have on people. And that if there's going to be days you're going to rock up from work and you're going to have had that day and the boss has barked at you, or if you're the boss, some idiot completely screwed something up and you're just going to want to kick the door in. But take the fact we all get a free a hall pass on that every now and again. If we rock up and we're in a good mood, we really do, and it's come back to me more and more since our qualifiers. The better mood you're in, the better chance you've got of everybody performing well. And that's all they want to do. They just want to be good. The winning will happen. Forget the scoreboard.
Have you seen the question from Tim just in the chat? I think it's gone through to everyone.
Part of the package of seeing is you have to deal with criticism at some point, whether internally or externally, over the years. How have you learned to deal with or utilise criticism? You're telling me I get criticised there, are you, Timmy? No, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. It's going to happen. So how do you deal with it? I guess initially when I was in Kalgoorlie, I was a bit oblivious to stuff. I had, for 2 years, I had a free swing. The team was good. We needed to win. I don't think if we won in 2007, I don't think I was going to be there for 2008. So by the end of that, the pressure of the place had started to sink in. But there was still plenty of criticism. I can remember coming down to Willett, and we played a double header. I can't remember where we played. We were at Sunday in Humey. And I mentioned him before, he was a little bastard who kicked my ass when I went back up with Cockburn. Humey's quietly, and Timmy, you would remember, just one of the best little two guards we've seen in the league for a long time. And people always go, he's small. And he was my starting two guard and my backup point guard. And in our 2 championship years, he just quietly averaged 17 points a game. No one ever rated him. And a genius. He was the guy that wouldn't touch a basketball for 4 months over summer and come to the first training session and light you up. But we'd come off this double header. We're down at Willetton. My first year as a head coach, and he's gone 1 for 10. And I put him back in a game against Willetton. They were stacked. Remember when some of us Willetton went through that period where they would just rotate NBL players through their team. And they had young Benny Hunt, and I can't remember who else were there, but we were right there. And we'd made a run. We had one of the other guys, Toddy Earl, on, and then I thought with about 4 or 5 minutes to go, it's like, let's roll King, Humey out. Sorry, his nickname's King. And someone threw him a bad pass. It was basically a half volley. And he picked it up off the floor and jacked it. And I knew at that moment he was going to make his next 4 shots. He was going to be sitting next to me. Because if you're going 1 for 10, you're not jacking that up on your first touch. Have some awareness of what's going on. So when he was sitting next to me, because he missed it, and at Willetton, as you know, it's the old original stadium there is sit right on you. And there's more Humes on the planet than there are flies, I think. They're everywhere. And they basically sat behind me for the rest of the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game and just cooked me up every time someone missed a shot. So in your first year, when you're a pretty fiery coach, it kind of was a little bit of a baptism of fire. It's hard not to bite, but you've got to not bite if you're copying it in a game. If you're copying it out of a game, it's okay. It's hard. There's hoops.com now. There used to be the SBL forum. People like to jump on and, throw barbs. It's hard not to hear it. It's hard not to feel it, more importantly. I'm struggling to actually put into words how to answer that, mate. You can turn it around in that sometimes it's after you've left. When I left Kalgoorlie and I went up for something, can't remember what it was. Actually, I can. I think it was Seamus, who I've mentioned a couple of times. He didn't finish the 2009 season. He was crook and ended up missing all of 2010. He had lymphoma. And it was his comeback game up there, and I flew up for the game. And there's a bunch of people who'd been the biggest kickers while I was up there were all of a sudden wanted to be my best mate. And, no, geez, you wouldn't do that, would you, Charlie? So you can turn it around. That didn't turn around while I was there. Cockburn in my first year, our normal team manager, Pete, had to miss one of the games for something. And so one of the other dads, one of the good club families kind of would be the team manager. So he came into the game and did my pre-game up on the wall and wrote everything up and then played the game. I don't remember the result. Came out of the room afterwards and we were walking upstairs and Desi was with us and he was just like, everyone thinks you're a maniac, don't you? I was like, yeah, I know. And he went like, no, I mean it. I was like, yeah, I know. And he said, you know, my wife doesn't really like the way you sort of push the boys, and obviously particularly Sean, because that's her son. And I was like, yeah, I get that. It wasn't dismissive. Sorry, it made that sound dismissive. It wasn't. It was just like, yeah, I get it. And he said, but you know what? I learned something today. I was like, what's that? And he went, everything you bark about in the game was written up on the board beforehand. So I turned a lot of people around in that situation because they were critical of me, thinking that I'm just too aggressive, I'm just too hard, I'm just too whatever they thought. I'm an idiot. Maybe they were a little bit right on that one. You can use it, but if you're going to use it, you've got to use it the right way. As a person, it hurts. Anyone who says it doesn't, and anyone professional sportsman who says, I don't read the newspaper, I don't see the comments, yeah, they're pissing in the wind. They don't mean it. Because it's all over their Facebook feed. It's all over everything anyway. It's one of the harder things to actually sort of, I guess, verbalize how to deal with it. I don't know if I ever dealt with it well. But at the end of the day, and I don't know I didn't, I genuinely don't know. I know what I did do was try to use it, but not get angered by it, if that makes sense. I didn't want to use it in the whole F you kind of thing and just prove that person wrong. Why are you playing that person? Oh, I'm just going to play him. Then screw you. All right. But the other thing is, if you sit back and listen to some of it, I'd be lying if I said it was all wrong. So there's that natural reaction to just stick up for yourself. And maybe as you get into it a bit more and a little bit older, a little bit hopefully wiser, but maybe just used to it, you start to kind of go like, well, if everyone's saying that this is a thing, is it? Yeah, I've been criticised a lot for my SBL sideline antics. As I said, it's amazing how purple the head and how big the veins are when you see yourself back on the video in a game. And I've had to learn to chill out. I've had to learn to do that less. Those criticisms were valid. And they're more valid now when I'm coaching basically the disability women's team. They're more valid now than they've ever been before. That I can't bark at girls like I can at guys. I just can't. So those criticisms, whether they're from external or internal, are perfectly fine. So it's kind of, I guess I've talked myself to the whole point. Like, it's sifting through them. There's going to be a bunch of crap in there. That's fine. They're the easy ones to ignore. The harder ones are probably the ones that are actually true. Because basically what they are, if they are true, they are a personal thing. I was too aggressive on the sideline. I'd lose my shit at the drop of a hat. And as an example, in an elimination semi-final against Lakeside that year at Cockburn, I nearly fainted. I actually had to take a knee because I'd run out of breath in my lungs. So when people say you need to chill out, you're probably right.
It's a bit of truth there, Charlie.
Hey?
There's a bit of truth there, mate.
It's sifting through them, mate. It's sifting through and work out what, if it's not real, don't worry about it.
Yeah. So what I'll do, because we usually finish sort of right on the hour, so if anyone wants to leave the conversation, that's perfectly fine. You're not being rude. But there's a couple more questions coming through. So Charlie, are you happy just to hang around for a little bit longer and answer a few of these questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. I know, Chris, you had a question, so I might just get you to sort of reword it a little bit to sort of relate it. So I'll just unmute you.
Yeah, hi, Steve. Just a quick one. How did you go with building your team culture with your wheelchair basketball with all your players sort of all spread out nationally? Obviously it's a different story if you've got a team, you know, in Perth and you obviously get together and you have your meetings and stuff. But how did you do it, or how did you build it, you know, with everyone so spread out?
So I took over the national team about August last year. The previous coach was, well, I was his assistant. I keep feeling like I have to defend myself. I had nothing to do with it, but it was just one of those things where it's like the Basketball Australia decided they needed to make a change, and we were really young, so we had a really young core of girls that came through. We had the under 25s in Thailand last year, and which is so in the wheelies the junior age groups are a little higher just to get numbers. So we had a bunch of those girls then came into the senior group, and a bunch of good people that were left in the group. I'm also lucky in that environment that we have a sports psych attached to the program, who guides me through a lot of things through that environment. But it came down to basically giving the players the voice to have their opinion. So if we're just talking about in-game scenarios, team scenarios, what are our acceptables, our minimums? Who are we? What do we stand for? And that's not good defense, good offense. It's we want to be hard to play. We want to be good people. We want to be good winners and losers. Yeah, this type of stuff. So we actually just roundtabled it as a playing group. Some of that we were in, particularly initially. And then at camps, to be honest, sometimes you just got to let it go because you need to get away and do other things. Because you just can't do. You can't do everything while you're there. We allowed the players to choose their leadership group, but not their captain. Because we thought the on-court captain had to be the natural leader. And the players don't always see that. So we actually ended up having at the Worlds in 2018, we had a three-person leadership group and a separate court captain who had no interest in all the other shit anyway. She had absolutely no interest in knocking on doors, making sure everyone's okay. It's just not how she's wired. So we set up some mechanisms within the group that we could cover everything off. We set some ground rules within the environment. So as I said, most of what we do is camp-based, whether it's AIS or whether we're away at tournament. So there's always rules around if we're going to be somewhere, you've got to be here on time. There's no being late. Don't always be late. Don't always be last. There are a couple of players I'm sure we've all seen that they're always the last one to training. They're always the last one on court. Don't always be last. So we set up some of those boundaries within the team because whilst the players absolutely have to have some input, there also has to be a level of some items where you have the final say. So they were the ones that we went in and went, all right, so here are our final sayings. If we're going to meet for a 7 o'clock breakfast, don't get there at 7. On time's late sort of thing. And then we leave the playing group to deal with it. We had a situation where we had, something popped up, doesn't matter what it was, and we gave that to the leadership group to deal with. It wasn't a huge thing, but it was bad enough that it needed to be dealt with. So we built up the trust for the girls to actually enjoy each other's company, to have each other's back, to enjoy being around each other, basically. And then we'll give them, and it builds over time, you give them more things that they can manage. The input to some of the, if you want team rules or expectations, you absolutely still have to be a part of. But you can always, in that situation, say, you girls will manage it. I'll manage this stuff. You girls are going to manage that. So we hold the player accountable who's late, but we hold their flatmate too. Don't leave if you know your roommate's not ready. You should be going down to breakfast together anyway. All right, so we start to build in some I'm going to say rules. Not everyone likes the word, but yeah, some expectations around what's expected. But we also have a lot of those that we start to hand over to the playing group to manage. Is it okay that Fred's late again? No. All right, what do you guys want to do? Because no longer is it, all right, Fred, you're late, run 5 suicides. It sure as hell doesn't work anymore when Fred's late 3 times in a row and you go, Fred, stand on the sideline, everybody run 5 suicides. All right, that kind of stuff worked 30 years ago. I know, because I was made to do it. But the way times have changed. So it's, look, there's a huge amount you've got to take back from the players, what their expectations are. You've got to guide them along, because if they're like, well, it doesn't matter, I got here on time, what's it matter? Well, for us in our environment, if we're going to start on the hour and you're not in your chair, you can't start for 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the player. A high pointer who walks in, jumps in the chair, clips in, they're off. But a 1 pointer, he's got to get out of the day chair, got to strap in, got to do a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that go into them actually physically. Like, yeah, they look like they're just in the chair, but it takes a while. So there's kind of expectations around that, 7 o'clock session means they're at 7:15 and activations and all the rest of it and ball passing and movement, you're getting ready to start. And we give that to the players to own, so that they're starting to feel like they have some input, because we want them to have some input.
Cool.
You've got to manage how far you let them go, all right, because they can't run the show, and that's the fine line. You don't want to be a tyrant, but you don't want to get run over. But it's just giving your group. To me, the culture of the group isn't, are we going to go out and have beers? I've never played on a team or coached a team that didn't have beers or coffees or, whatever it might be. They enjoy each other's company. That's fine. It's more about, the culture is about how are we going to perform and how are we going to hold each other accountable. And while we're here, how are we going to manage each other and ourselves? I hope that helped. It's a hard question. It's a hard answer. More to the point. It's
Jason, you had a question as well. If you just unmute yourself and fire away, man.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so just you were mentioning that in terms of your philosophy, you're a defense first coach, and I know a lot of coaches who would say that as well. So I'm just interested to know what that looks like. So you mentioned the importance of spending the time in practice working on the things that you want to see, but I just wondered if there were any specific things that you carried through all the teams you've been involved with in terms of non-negotiables, or how you defend one pass away, where your help comes from, those sorts of things.
Yep, no, absolutely. To be honest, as good as we were defensively, we at SBL level, and I'll use that because it's obviously the one that's easier. If I start talking about triple switches and quad switches, no one's going to know what I'm talking about. So we actually kept it really simple, and we just did, the simple things really well. So we would drill the crap out of it. So we would, as far as drills goes, we'd do our shell, and we do all variations of that. We do shell with shots, we do shell without, we do 5v4 shell. We do all sorts of different pieces about that for our physical work rate to get through those. But we would, we had, in effect, we had variations, but we either hard showed on balls or we did a come under on balls. Occasionally we needed to push certain specific players, but if you want to talk to core, that's what we did. So we had, we had high shows, flat shows on our on balls. We had, split unders. So the post defender would actually step off so you could get, the ball defender could split through, and then we would just have full unders depending on the player. And we would drill it. So the example was, if that's what we were going to do and we're coming up against Seb, all right, we're going to go, all right, we got a hard show, and follow Seb over. We can't come under on him. He's just going to pull up and jack it up. So we would have done most of the core work, obviously, in pre-season and through the year. But then we would drill what we wanted to do through that, and we would do it and do it. So the way I used to drill it was to go, I don't care in the drill about the result. So you can get it right and you can just pull up and make a shot. The defense has done the right thing. All right. But if he misses and you've got it wrong, you're still on D. All right. So we would break it down and we would sort of spend 5 minutes as we're prepping. For a team, it's a bit different because you're into the season. But if we're going back to our pre-season, we would, particularly the first years at each club, it would be, we would break that down. This is what we're going to be. Bigs, this is how we're going to hard show. And we would break down a session. And we might go, Tuesdays, we're going to do defense. All right, we tell them. When they're halfway through the session, they're like, when we're playing offense, Thursday. All right. And we would actually be accountable. We changed. I actually took the scoreboard away from a lot of training sessions because I took the focus on the drill, not the scoreboard. Even in scrimmages, if we want to do a certain thing within a scrimmage, this is how we want to defend or how we want to play. Because players look at the scoreboard and it's a 2-point game and there's a minute to go. They'll throw everything out the window and try to win instead of trying to win out of what we're doing. We still had scoreboard scrimmages. But we would then take if we're doing a defensive drill. So we used to run a drill where the ball would be out of bounds on the baseline, 4-on-4, obviously, and someone defending the ball. One of the coaches would stand roughly foul line 45, 3-point line. And the passer would throw the ball to the coach. And then someone had to go and someone had to come out and tap the coach's hand to get back into D. I was just struggling how to say that. It's been a long day. I've spoken too much. So therefore, someone had to come out of your 5-man D, and then we had to talk our rotations back in. So we would score that on not the shot going in. Used to piss everyone off. It was awesome. All right, because you'd get a contested shot and someone's hands in their grill and they'd make it, and the offense was like, yeah, we're like, that's a stop, turnover. And we'd score stops. Or they'd be like, yeah, shot went in, we get to play defense and try to score. And we go like, well, no, what's the defense done wrong? Yeah, but we should. Yeah, but the defense hasn't done anything wrong. All right, so part of my coaching philosophy on defense was, so there's 2 types. I'm going to slap you in the face and steal the ball, or I'm going to choke you over 40 minutes. I was lucky it was 48. I got the extra 8 minutes to choke people. All right. So my philosophy was always, we're going to choke you. All right. So I was like, just keep making that shot all game. Just keep making that contested 17-foot jump shot all game, and I'll shake your hand when you've won the game. So that was my philosophy. That was, we're not going to be the team that's going to come out, and Lakeside and us were the complete opposites in that regard. Lakeside came out and they were all pressure and hands and slapped the ball and turnovers. So Andy's philosophy between turnovers and offensive rebounds, he wanted to create 30 plus extra possessions a game. Pretty successful for him at SBL. Our theory was, we're not going to turn the ball over. So we took that away from them. But our theory was, we're just going to choke you over the course of the game. Yeah, you know, they used to run their set and they'd bring people up and we'd send them under and then they'd do it again. And it was just like, of course they've got counters. But it's like, we're going to make you do the tough things. So we would do the work in practice about sticking to what we want to do and knowing it, so that when the pressure was on and you're not sure if you should show on set, because we're up 3, we're kind of safe here, I should be all right. No. What we do is we're going to show on set. And everyone else then, so when you get the first part of that out and you can position up your weak side in your drills, so then you can actually talk about, okay, where's our rotations going to come from? And once you get that done, so when we went into the 2012 East Perth Grand Final, we played East Perth in the Grand Final in 2012, and they had Jervis, Drew, Joe Allen, Corey Paisley was starting, and I can't think of the young kid. Balcom, I knew it was a Burr. And we actually were watching their tape after the Lakeside series, and it's like they would do a ball would swing through Tom, he'd then pin down for Drew coming up. If you switched it, you had a guard on Tom. All right, so we went, all right, so we're not going to switch that. What we did was when Jervis came down and Drew came up, we brought the weak side guard in to guard Drew and sent Drew's player back out to the weak side and actually did the switch, not on the pin down, we did it off ball. And we put that in Tuesday night because we knew our rules so well over that season. And obviously the imports, it was their first year, but the core group had been there for a while. So we, you know, it's a cumulative thing. The first year we wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have had 3 open guys. Yeah, and then obviously the next year we sort of turned that around a bit and we got pretty good. And then by the 3rd year we were just, hand in glove. It was just all synced, and away we go. So it's about when you're doing, the way I did it was when we were doing the drills that focused on it, we actually put a reward or penalty in there. So the reward might be, so we would do sessions that were defensive focused, where you got scores for not getting the stop, for getting the defense right.